Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. We got in the co-captain's chair today. He's moving all over the place. Jack
Yeah, there's a
Toledano.
reason for that. Yep. How
What's
you
happening, my
doing?
friend? I'm doing good. How are you? Happy Friday to you.
Very good.
It's I don't know about on Long Island, but here in upstate New York, it's dreary, rainy, gray Friday.
It is dreary,
Yeah.
crappy. I
Yeah.
hope it clears up later. I have to go practice my golf swings.
Well, you know what? You got a near 100-degree temperature set for Sunday and Monday, so that's what we have to look forward to.
Right.
Anyway, we are here today to talk about the band Traffic. So realized that I had never done a top 10 songs for Traffic here on the channel. We've ranked the albums, we've done deep cut dive or deep cuts on classic albums for low spark of high heel boy show, but never a top 10 song show. And Jack's a fan, so he asked you'd be interested in doing that. I'm like, absolutely. So we have each put together our favorite 10 tracks from Traffic. I have a little couple honorable mentions as well for the end. So I'll let Jack kick it off with his number 10.
Okay. So number 10, and just to give a little background. So I knew about half of Traffic's albums, so I had to go in and I had to, re-listen to everything. And, I picked up a few really good nuggets along the way. So
it's a good band, really good band.
Yeah, very good. I have some representing the end of their career, some from the beginning of their career. This number 10 comes from their last album, 1994, Far From Home. The first song, Riding High. Very 80s, 90s sounding. Granted, it does sound a little bit like a Steve Winwood solo, but it works for me.
Yeah, I agree. I have all of them, and I remember buying that and feeling pretty excited at the prospect of a new Traffic album, and it sounds like a Steve Winwood solo album. Not a bad one by any means.
Right.
The occasional flute and things like that kind of remind you of the old days, but for the most part, it's a very kind of 90s sounding album, and it's good. That's a good track. That's quite possibly could be the best song on the album, right?
Yeah.
It starts off with a bang, and then there's a lot of people who really dig that album, and I like it too. It's probably one of my least favorites from them, but it still has enough good material on it to warrant, good stuff.
Right.
Cool. So my number 10, I'm going to go back to the self-titled second album called Traffic from 1968. Excuse me, for a song called Pearly Queen. Which, the early part of their career, very kind of folky, psychedelic. This tune's got some blues feel. It's actually a pretty good rock song, and it's got some great kind of guitar solos from either Dave Mason or Steve Winwood, or the both of them. I don't really know.
Right.
It's hard to, so on those early albums, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell who's playing what there, because both very good guitar players. But it's just it's just a good rock song, again, with those folk and psych elements too. And the first couple albums are a little strange, a little different than the rest of the catalog, but that's a good song, good little anthem.
Oh, without a doubt. We may be talking about that in a bit.
Cool. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so number 9, I'm going to go back all the way back to the first album, the very first song, Heaven Is In Your Mind. I spun that album and I liked it right away. I love the piano. I love the psychedelic components to that song. They hadn't, like you said in your album reviews, they hadn't really found their way yet, but yet at that point in time, that was a really good sound for them.
Like there's a certain charm to that first album. I think the first album is definitely, I mentioned before about the first 2 albums, but the first album is really different than anything else they ever did. And there is this kind of British folksy vibe, with that real kind of whimsical early psych sound going on that album. And I agree, that is a pretty charming lead-off track to that album. So of course, Jack's talking about this one right here.
Yeah.
I dig that. I dig that. And I remiss, I didn't show I got all the CDs here and I'm not showing anything. My last pick from this was the Traffic album I was talking about before. So the self-titled.
Okay.
So that's a good one there. So I'm going to go with next. Hold on, let me go find it here. So I'm going to go to the Low Spark of High Heel Boys album from 1971, which
Okay.
probably their most famous album, for a song called Rainmaker. All right, it's the last cut on the album. It's kind of long. It's epic. It's folky. It's kind of proggy. I'm reminded a little bit of early Jethro Tull on this song as well. It's got the haunting vocals. It's got kind of like that folky, proggy vibe that Tull was doing like on the stand-up album. That's what kind of, which, similar time period here. And I like the kind of moody vocals of the song. It's definitely a hidden gem, a very good deep cut for everybody who's into the whole deep cut dive shows we're doing now. Definitely a deep cut from this particular album, which, again, one of their more well-known albums.
Okay, that's cool. I remember we talked about this even before we went on air, that my top 10 is basically a mixture of some very famous Traffic songs and some deep dives. So
yeah.
But so far it's been all deep dives for me. So we're going to go to number 8. Again, back to that self-titled Traffic album. And this is a song sung by Dave Mason. You Can All Join In. Yes, there you go. And I had to have a song in the top 10 with Dave Mason. He did have a few good songs, but I thought that one was his best. I just love the whimsical quality of, that song.
It's got kind of like a jig feel to it, that song.
Yes.
And the vocal's pretty playful, It's a good song.
Very happy song, upbeat.
Yeah. Well, the early part of their catalog was very upbeat and happy, I think.
Yeah.
And, they got a much moodier as the band went on, because some of their later records have, it's not quite as kind of like whimsical as some of the early stuff, like the song I'm going to talk about right now. So I'm going to go all the way to their last album before the big break, When the Eagle Flies from 1974, for a song called Dream Gerard. Okay. And this is like, this album is where I think their jazz and their prog leanings really kind of came to the forefront. I mean, this is like, it's got saxophone from Chris Wood. It's got piano. It's got really creepy mellotron. This is just, I know a lot of like progressive rock fans love this album because this album is pretty proggy. And that is probably one of the songs that I always kind of really looked at from this album. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of like a somewhat different direction for the band. It kind of took everything that they did before on all the other albums and kind of poured it all into one song. But it's moody as all hell. I like the kind of bleak jazz feel to it. Like I said, it's got some pretty cool mellotron as well. So that's my choice for number 8.
Oh, okay. Cool. So number 7, everybody's going to know this one. This is a Jim Capaldi song. He's one of his lead vocal songs on the album Low Spark of High Heel Boys. Let's go with Light Up or Leave Me Alone.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
I love that song. We'll be talking about that again very soon. Very soon.
I don't think we need to talk about that much. So.
What's that? Yeah, I will. Yeah, it's a great song. It's a great song. My number 7, going to go to 1969 for the Last Exit album, which very underrated album, I think. And I'm going to go with Medicated Goo.
Oh,
good song, a weird title, but it's kind of, I love the bass playing on this from Rick Resch. It's got, it's kind of funky. It's got some really tasty lead guitars from Winwood. I mean, Winwood is like a really good guitar player, very underrated player. And I've always loved the kind of like, I don't know, like I said, it's got kind of like this weird ass like funky groove for 1969, and I think it's just a really immediate album that just like instantly grabs you.
Very cool. Nice. I like it. Okay, so number 6 is going to be another famous song, and it's not much to talk about here. It's from their first album, Mr. Fantasy. Dear Mr. Fantasy, play us a tune. Yeah, that's my number 6.
Happy.
Yeah,
that's a classic song.
Yeah,
classic song. I dig it. All right, so where are we? We're at number 6, right? Okay, so I'm going to throw a little curveball here, and I'm going to do an instrumental. From
Okay.
John Barleycorn Must Die from 1970, the song Glad.
Oh, nice. Yep.
What a great catchy melody for an instrumental
Very
track.
interesting that it's the kickoff track to the album and it's an instrumental.
I know, right? No vocals
Yeah.
necessary on this one, right? It's jazzy, it's snappy, it's got that great piano, organ, and saxophone. Man, such a
Yeah. No,
great
I love
song.
the sax in that song. It
Oh, it's
really
awesome. Well,
does works. Yeah.
Chris Wood, really good player, and he
Yeah.
played multiple instruments. And you listen to that song, you think, man, I would have loved to have heard a whole album of instrumentals from these guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Great idea. Yeah.
Right?
They
a
only
little
have like
late,
what,
but
3 or 4 in their whole catalog, I guess, right?
about that, yeah. I don't think any more
Right.
than that, yeah. But that's just a fantastic song. So
Right.
that's my number 6.
Okay, so number 5, and yeah, you already mentioned this, Pearly Queen. I think that's an amazing track. What I like about it, it's a great mix of the Hammond organ, the harmonica, the keyboards, just a all around great song.
It's catchy as all hell. That melody
Yeah.
is great in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it. All right, where are we? Number 5. How about Shootout at the Fantasy Factory from 1973?
Right.
Going to go with the title track.
Okay.
Kicks off the album, 6 minutes and change. Big, funky Latin percussion, lots of cool fuzz guitar and organ. It's just a different kind of song from them. It's kind of rocking, like I said. It's got big grooves. I dig it. Another underrated album that really doesn't have any hits on it, but I think the whole album is actually, it's funny how the last track on the album is called Sometimes I Feel So Uninspired, but actually this whole album is pretty inspiring, I think. It's just different. It's one of their lesser known efforts, but I dig it. And I think Shootout the Fantasy Factory is, the title track is just got this big sound. It kind of rocks. It's kind of moody, and I dig it. I love all the Latin percussion stuff going on too. Pretty cool stuff.
Very cool. Very nice. So number 4, and I thought I had this was difficult to do, and I'll tell you why. Because you have some very famous songs that have gotten a lot of airplay, and then you have a few of these deeper tracks that are really good. And I wanted to be fair to all these songs. So Pearly Queen and this song basically bumped Dear Mr. Fantasy and Light Up or Leave Me Alone and jumped ahead of them because I just thought they were so good. And the title of the song was kind of funny. So I had to give it a listen. And fortunately, the first time I heard it live, on YouTube, of course.
Right.
Medicated Goo.
Yeah, it's great, right? It's a really good song. I dig it a lot. I have always liked that song from the first time I heard it.
I thought the live version was even better.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. So many good songs in this band.
Great chorus. Yeah.
And it just gets you moving, right?
Yeah.
That's what's great about that song. Yep. I totally agree. All right, my number 4, I'm going to go back to John Barleycorn Must Die for a song called Empty Pages.
Okay.
Which, I mean, just an irresistible melody. It's so catchy, and it's got the big bright Hammond organ and just amazing vocals from Mr. Winwood, who, one of our vocal treasures of the rock and roll era. I think he's just, he's so distinctive. He's just got that British gentleman type of vocal approach. And I just love Empty Pages. It's just so memorable to me. Great song.
What's interesting about Empty Pages, I had never heard that song until I got to New Paltz and heard it on WPDH.
Oh, back in the 80s? Yeah. Well, yeah, it was kind of like a minor hit, but it was, I mean, compared to, Dear Mr. Fantasy, Low Spark, or High Heel Boys, obviously not quite as big as those, but it got played.
Well, the thing you have to understand about Long Island radio, if at the time the cutting edge station was WLIR, and if you weren't listening to that, it was WPLJ, which they touted themselves as Long Island's best or New York's best rock, but really wasn't.
Well, I mean, PLJ was the popular, but you got to understand, Jack, that's what people like, right? They want to hear those same favorite songs over and over again. I mean, PLJ was huge. back in the day.
It was,
Whether you liked them
what?
or not,
It was
right?
the same 20, 30 song.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
Used to
Of course.
piss me off that they never played Kiss, and
It wasn't until BAB came along to really give them a run for their money. And I think for a while, BAB was a pretty serious radio station, right?
But now, now they've fallen into that same funk. And I actually took Miley to a pet show one time, and they were there. And I said, why do you guys always play the same 20, 30 songs? And he gives me his marketing spiel. Oh, well, research shows that people only listen to the radio for about an hour, and once that 20 or 30 turnover, the next group of people are going to hear those songs again. So it's,
yeah. That's what they all say, right? WPDH says the exact same thing. It's all the same. It's all the same.
But so that was my spiel. So you just gave your number 4?
Yes, I did. So you're on number 3. Yep.
Okay. So my top 3 are untouchable. They were what I would consider untouchable. And my number 3 is Empty Pages.
Cool. Wow. All right.
Great
It's a great song, right? Yeah.
Always loved it. Yes.
Yeah.
From the first listen.
Yep. Good stuff. I dig it. It's a classic. It's a Traffic classic. As is my number 3, Little Light Up or Leave Me Alone, from Low Spark of High Heel Boys. It's just a really good bluesy hard rock song.
Yeah.
And I again, it's kind of whimsical, but it's got that great guitar lick and killer vocals, I believe.
Yeah, Jim Capaldi.
Capaldi sings that one,
on
right?
that song. Yeah.
He's got a good voice. He does got a good voice.
Yes, he does.
So there you have it. All right, number 3. Back to you for number 2.
Okay, so number 3, and I originally thought Empty Pages would be my number 2, but this song on the same album, so I'm drawing a blank from the title track of John Barleycorn Must Stop.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yep.
That is, I just love that. Very whimsical. Yeah, it's folk tune, and I love the guitar. It's just so nice. Yeah.
It's a good tune. I mean, the whole album, I think, is really good. John Barleycorn, like you said, is a nice mix of style, because you got some real folk stuff on here. Then you've got like the kind of jazzy Glad. You got the pop Empty Pages. So it's definitely a lot of variety on that album, and I like it. I like it. All right. So number 2, I'm gonna go with Dear Mr. Fantasy from the debut.
Very nice.
Classic. It's rocking. It's got some blistering guitar work. The chorus is legendary. It's great song. Great song. I mean, the top 2, it's ironic, and I don't normally go this route, but my top 2 are arguably the 2 biggest hits of all time. But that's how great they are, actually. So
okay,
you're number 1. It's probably going to be my number 1 as well.
I just want to remind everybody, we did not compare our lists here. It's just, happenstance that we both picked Pearly Queen and Medicated Goo and a few others that we picked. But my number 1, I mean, this is a no-brainer. They have a lot of great music in their catalog, but how could you not pick Low Spark of High Heeled Boys as your number 1? Yeah.
That's my number 1 as well.
Yep. How could you not, people?
That was the first one I put on my list. I was like, all right. What's funny is that Low Spark, was it 12 minutes long, right?
Right.
And I mean, I've heard it like hundreds of times.
Right.
But unlike other like real long popular songs, I'm thinking like Hotel California and Stairway to Heaven and stuff like that, which, I don't need to hear that often at all.
Right.
I always get delighted when I hear Low Spark of High Heel Boys, whether I play it myself or I hear it on the radio. It's just such a great song, and it's jazzy, it's moody, it's like, and it's not very commercial at all, right?
No, but there are qualities about the song I just love. I love the saxophone interspersed throughout the song. I just love the simple beat of do do do, and then they add a few little elements of more instruments here and there,
and that organ solo,
the piano playing, the piano
vocals,
solo toward the end.
It's all just great stuff.
And of course Steve Winwood kills it, the vocals in that song.
It's another one of those like kind of like lengthy epics that are radio tracks, like like Hotel California, Stairway to Heaven, Layla, right? That have just kind of withstood the test of time, even though when they came out,
Right.
obviously 12 minutes plus, not your typical radio fare, right? 3 or 4 minute long song.
Yeah.
So defied the odds, so to
Yes,
speak.
without a doubt.
So you got any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I have a few. So, and I'm going to go in order by album. So you have from Mr. Fantasy, you have Paper Sun. From the Traffic album, there's a few. Means to an End. Am I what I was or am what I am? I can't even pronounce that. Yeah. And then, of course, there's Dave Mason's song "Feeling All Right."
Yeah, ironically, that didn't make either of our top tens.
Right.
It's a good
But
song.
Feeling All Right, I love the version that Joe Cocker did.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of good versions of that song.
But
Yeah,
I like Joe
Grand Funk
Cocker's.
Railroad did a version too that was actually
Oh, I didn't know
good.
that.
Oh yeah,
Interesting. Oh, okay. So you mentioned Glad, and then there's the song right after it, Freedom Rider.
Freedom Rider's great. Yeah.
Yeah. There's two very high honorable mentions off of the Low Spark of High Heel Boys. There's Rock and Roll Stew and Many a Miles of Freedom. Another great song. Let's see, from Shootout at the Fantasy Factory, Roll Right Stones. And then I have a few from Far From Home, but I figured I'll let you go.
Well, Far From Home, how about Here Comes a Man? That's a really good song. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
40,000 Headmen from the Traffic album is another great one. You already mentioned John Barleycorn, Must Die title track. What else? Roll Right Stones, you got Rock and Roll Stew, Many a Mile of Freedom. You Can All Join In was on your list. Crying to Be Heard from the Traffic album, and the title track to When the Eagle Flies. And how about Colored Rain from Mr. Fantasy?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cute little fun song.
Right. I do have one more. And so Far From Home, it's called Holy Ground. And
yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Couldn't even pronounce this. They use what they call Elian pipes in the beginning of the song. They're like Irish bagpipes.
Yeah, I think it's called Julian, I think is how they pronounce it.
Yeah, I really did try, people, so please don't get offended. But I love that opening. That's, yeah. Leads into
all the folks from the UK are like, those damn Americans, they can't pronounce anything.
I
right.
know.
Well, I get a lot of shit for not pronouncing things that like all the Europeans know very well. So it's like, did you see the shit that I got for picking Evening Star as a deep track for Judas Priest? And there's one guy screaming, "Oh, it's a huge hit on this side of the lake." Not here. I mean, I think a lot of people forget that. It's like there was
culture
on the Dio show that I did with Chris Allo the other day. Chris picked the song as one of his deep Dio tracks, and one of the viewers said, "Oh, that's not a deep cut. That was released on a UK greatest hits collection." Well, that was never released here, or anywhere else in the world. So for us, I mean, we live in the US, so we're gonna, obviously we got to go with it. So
cultural differences.
It's okay. I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's like really, some people take this stuff.
But somebody did jump to my defense, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, even Star was not. I mean, that's as far as, I mean, I've been a Priest fan forever, just like you, and that's always been a deep track here in the States, anyway. It's like never.
But I just wanted to tell you. I mean, not to change the subject, but I bought this recently because
cool! Look at that.
Go to concerts, and I watched it yesterday. It is the bomb. Really good.
It's a good show.
Great.
It's a good show. Yeah, I think if you're it's a good representation of the Vinnie Moore era because they play a lot of the classics and a couple newer tunes. So that's definitely good. Definitely good. I almost wish though that there was like a concert DVD like that from like 1977 or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but nothing exists. So unfortunately,
actually, I think they said that's their first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah. Yeah, the UFO was never a band that put out lots of official live concerts or anything like that, unfortunately. Okay. And there's not a lot of great footage from the early days. There's
Rain
some.
Just started here.
Oh, yeah, it's been on and off here for a while. I don't know if it's doing it right now, but So there you have it, guys. Top 10 songs of Traffic. Feel free to list your favorite 10 Traffic songs in the comments below. Remember, there's no right or wrong answers here. We all have our favorites, and I think we can all agree that, God, I don't know if this band ever did a bad song. A lot of great, great tunes here.
Oh, yeah.
So thanks a lot to Jack for jumping on with us today and talking some Traffic. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So Jack's coming back over the next week and a half. I think, what do we got? Lynyrd Skynyrd, Led Zeppelin,
and Aerosmith.
And Aerosmith deep cut dives, as well as I think Jack is going to join Martin Popoff and I on a Rush deep cut dive show as well. So
I'm very excited for that one. Yeah.
So that'll be, we'll have to kind of schedule all this. So, but we'll, so stay tuned for that. And as far as later today, speaking of Martin Popoff, he's coming on the show in about a half hour. So we are going to do a deep cut dive into the discography of the Scorpions. So that's coming up today. And I'm going to be pretty quiet over the weekend, guys, because I got company coming over, and probably not till you may see me on Sunday, definitely Monday morning. I believe Monday morning, Jeff Young from Megadeth coming back on the show for a deep cut dive into the albums of Fleetwood Mac. So that's coming up on Monday.
Cool.
So we'll see you guys later on. Have a good weekend. And Jack, I will talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.